G'day, mate. Luke Ford here, back again with author Rony Guldmann. That's Ronyguldmann. He's the author of Conservative Claims of Cultural Oppression. He's also author of a memoir about his time at Stanford, The Star Chamber of Stanford on the Secret Trial and Invisible Persecution of a Stanford Law Fellow. So your former professors with whom you started off with a pretty strong relationship when you were at Stanford Law, and then things devolved. A lot of media coverage of them, including in The New Yorker. I just read the Michael Lewis book about Sam Bankman-Fried.
You did? Okay, I've heard about that book. I've not read it.
Oh, okay. Well, probably should read it. And anything that you've learned, any of the media coverage about Sam Bankman-Fried's parents, Joe Bankman and Barbara Fried, that grabbed your attention, Ronnie?
Sure. Well, it's been a while since we spoke. A number of interesting things happened before, the trial started in September. But even before that, I believe in August, Judge Kaplan of the Southern District of New York threw SBF in jail for violating the terms of his bail. He had hoping to prejudice the public and through it, hopefully the jury, to his cause. He released, various, private memoir diary entries to the New York Times of his former girlfriend, Caroline Ellison, who pled guilty and is cooperating with the government. So, because of that witness tampering, he got thrown in jail to what is a pretty terrible facility with lots of cockroaches and everything you would expect from an underfunded jail. So again, that it confirmed the reasonable impression. This guy SBF, he is obviously a smart guy, but not nearly as smart as he thinks he is. It's sort of, impressively, he made a lot of money, arbitrage, buying Bitcoin in the U.S. and selling it in Korea and Japan. So he made a lot of money as a very young man. And, as can happen at that age, you're not aware of, everything. You're going to attribute everything to yourself. You have a much weaker appreciation of the role of chance and circumstance in what happens, and that seems to have fueled his arrogance. It was manifested again with the risks he took in running FTX, the risks he took in speaking out publicly after FTX petitioned for bankruptcy and before his arrest, and even after his arrest, as with Michael Lewis, he continued to speak. And then again, the arrogance of his witness tampering. So from what I hear, all the cooperating witnesses, his fellow execs, number two men and women, took guilty pleas. But which means that their sentences are going to depend on their performance at his trial, which I think is nearly over now. And they're all saying, he was fully aware of what was going on. And, that was precisely what one would expect. It's he has all these excuses about just like negligent mismanagement. I didn't intend to do it, and to the extent that it wasn't intent, it was Caroline Ellison over at Alameda. But the bottom line is that he was still running FTX. Therefore, he was aware of whether customer deposits were being commingled or not. And yeah, it's true that maybe had they been more competent traders at Alameda, maybe the thing would have gone on. In fact, if they were really competent, maybe they would have made enough money to repay the commingled funds, which were borrowed. But that has no bearing on the criminal intent. So that's what they're all saying. He directed. Yeah, I wrote the code, but it was SBF who directed it. So I think who knows with the jury? White collar crime, it's very technical. The jury could lose interest or stop caring. That's certainly possible, but I think the evidence is overwhelming, both in terms of the testimony and just common sense. Now certainly once we get the verdict, that's going to be the denouement of the whole story. But interestingly, recently, the parents, Joe and Barbara, have been sued by the subjects of my book have been sued by FTX, which is now under new bankruptcy management. And I think that the total damages being requested of them in total is well over $20 million. So even I think before this, I'm sure, and they've said so, or at least confidants have said so. Larry Kramer, who's also addressing the book, said he thinks they could readily get wiped out by this whole thing, and this was before the lawsuit for FTX for the clawing back of misappropriated funds. They got a 16 million Bahamian mansion, 10 million bucks in just cash, donations to Stanford at the behest of Joe, donations to Barbara's PAC, Democratic PAC, Mind the Gap, at the behest of Barbara. So it looks pretty bad. In fact, I just read the complaint against them this morning, and I have to, upon reading that, acknowledging that nothing has been proven yet, of course, but based on that, I have to revise my estimate of them, as I wrote on my website. I haven't done that yet. I think when I wrote that at the time, this was right as the matter was erupting last fall. I probably had an overly charitable view of them. I mean, I faulted them, culturally, for all the reasons outlined in my writings, but I didn't think that they had actual involvement in the crime. And to be fair, these new allegations in this civil complaint, they don't, even if true, they wouldn't necessarily prove a crime per se, but that certainly Joe was more intimately involved with the company than I had been aware of. At the beginning, I thought that it was just with their charitable arm, but apparently he had a pretty good grasp of their finances, and so FTX is saying he could have readily inferred from that their financial straits, and so I'll have to rethink that part of my analysis.
And how conscious do you think Sam Bankman-Fried was that he was engaged in massive fraud, or do you think it was more a matter of carelessness?
I don't. I have to think that he was, in his heart of hearts, he was conscious of it. It would be incredible if he were not, because at the end of the day, either the customer funds have been commingled or they weren't. Either Alameda was afforded special rights on the FTX platform, or it wasn't. So these are, either or dichotomies, which, as the CEO, as the person running the company, you would have to be aware of. How could you be unaware of something so significant? It's possible that he was unaware of the factors which actually led to the poor investment decisions. It's possible that he wasn't aware of how poor those were because he had detached himself from the details and so forth. That's certainly possible. But on the underlying issue of whether he fraudulently misrepresented what FTX was doing to customers and to investors, that's light is on or off. It's either or. I think it's a simple thing. So it's not possible for me to believe that someone of his intelligence could have been unaware of something so simple.
And what do you understand, if anything, was were his parents' role in any of this?
Well, to the extent, Barbara was sort of more at the periphery of things. In fact, even the complaint doesn't label her as an insider. Her principal thing was maybe in the promotion of FTX generally, but she was, her main thing was her political action committee. It was her ego. She wanted to. Positioned herself as a savior of vulnerable Democrats against the Trumpist onslaught. Right, this high tech high. She wasn't going to be just another political action committee. This was about using elite brains to carefully direct funds exactly where they would do the most good, concealing your true intentions from the Republicans. She spoke of a cone of silence. This was like, again, this was her vanity. It was this, higher order meta sort of political action committee that sort of saw things from, again, from one level up, as which is the expression that came out of her mind to characterize like my purported arrogance, but which also characterized her own vanity. And so again, we're sort of one level up. So her whole thing was this pack, and she was always prodding Sam to donate to it in various ways, in ways that would conceal the origin of the funds. So I'm not sure that she was aware of the financial shenanigans and the actual precarity of FTX's financial positions. Now, as to Joe, the complaint doesn't say that he was privy to the code changes that facilitated the misappropriation, that permitted Alameda to borrow funds even from customers who had not agreed to lend their assets, their crypto assets, on any terms. I don't know that he was involved in the conception of that scheme, but it suggests that he's an esteemed scholar of tax law. He was helping all of these companies. They had like it was a hydra of LLCs all over the world, completely maddening. When I saw that, I thought, well, I'm glad I didn't do bankruptcy law. I'd make more money, but my head would explode. But so you have this labyrinth of subsidiaries and affiliates and so forth. And Joe Bankman was involved in minimizing their tax liability. That's perfectly legal. Nothing wrong with that. But the point of the complaint is that, being so involved, he would be aware, at least the rough contours of their financial status. So, he knows that Alameda hedge fund, the investment arm of the SBF empire, um, was indebted to FTX for billions and billions of dollars. So he could see that. He also presumably could have gathered that the money loaned from FTX to Alameda could not but have come from commingled customer funds. So, yeah, I think you can, reasonably